It's on Amazon. I got
It's
it on
the
my
only
Kindle.
place. Yeah.
I don't know
You
if
have to
can
download it.
Okay, fire up the grill. We're gonna roast.
Passed. So that was part of the session, but it wasn't the biggest part of the session, quite frankly. Let me run over some educational issues with you, since I know that you're dealing with that currently in your budget. And I know it's a struggle, and it always is a struggle. But let me give you some, what I think is probably some good news, and we'll just have to see where it falls out. We'll return to Richmond on the 3rd of April. Don't know how long we'll be there, or whether the budget will change substantially, or whether we'll even have a budget, quite frankly. There are some indications that some left Richmond believing that the budget was, or the transportation budget rather, was tied to Medicaid expansion. And so they're not happy that they supported a transportation plan, and there will be no Medicaid expansion. There may be some reform, but there won't be any expansion this year. So I really don't know where the transportation issue will go, to be honest with you. I wish I could tell you, but I just can't do that. I can tell you some of the things that are proposed in the transportation plan, and we'll just have to see how they work out. There is an act in Congress currently. It is called the Marketplace Equity Act. In checking with Rob Whitman's office yesterday, it apparently is making its way through the Congress slowly, but surely. It has to do with the internet and those things that are purchased on the internet, and the taxes that would be applied to those items. What you probably don't know and have not heard is contingent on that adoption, Poquoson, York County, and Hampton fare very well with educational money. Let me just give you the rough figures that I got from the Speaker's office today. Should the act pass, Poquoson stands to gain an additional $265,076 in 2014. That's a chunk of change for a community and a school system and a council that needs the money, without question. York, $1.5 million. Hampton, 3.2 million. So should this act pass, should it move through Congress, we can look for that additional money in 2014. Let me move on to transportation, if I could, on some other parts. In the current transportation budget, and you've all read about the tax increases, and they may come and they may not, to be honest with you. I just don't know. Again, we have some folks that left Richmond who left thinking one thing and actually something else happened, so it could change the complexion of the entire budget. But in the transportation plan, there are some things that we, when I say we as a district, benefited, I think, greatly. Number one was the widening of Interstate 64 to Williamsburg and then on to Richmond. Went from about the 11th most congested area in the state to the second, which means that, you know, we're going to see some dollars regarding that. Let me just tell you what the Secretary of Transportation said. I asked him to put it in writing for me. He talks about the chief among projects that will happen if this transportation plan is finally adopted and moves on. Is $85 million to widen Interstate 64 between Newport News and Williamsburg. And one thing that concerns us, and we've tried to work on that for at least the last year and a half, and he says one of my top priorities is making improvements to Victory Boulevard. That, I think, is I think that's a big deal. I think it's a big deal for Poquoson. I think it's a big deal probably for that part of York County as well. We were supposed to have the Secretary of Transportation here, I think it was the 6th, and Mr. Wheeler was going to, he and I were going to meet with him so we could look at Victory Boulevard and see what those improvements need to be, and then allow Mr. Connaughton to go back and do his magic with his math. But as of today, that's where that is. That's a couple of things that we picked up in the transportation plan that I thought are very important, especially to this city. I think the improvements to Victory Boulevard will certainly hopefully provide some economic development future for the city. And I can't think of a better time that you folks don't need some economic development as in many other areas in the Commonwealth. Let's talk a bit, if I could, and Randy, I guess this is probably directed, it's directed to you, but it's directed to council as well. And I'm not sure about this, so I ask you the question. Is there currently an elected member out of the House or out of the Senate on the TPO from the peninsula?
Not to the best of my knowledge.
Okay. This is just a piece of advice for council. You need to have one. You absolutely need to have one. There are some very important votes being taken about transportation money right now, and you don't, other than Randy, I don't know that you have another vote. What I would do if I were you is, and I'm not here to volunteer for anything, but what I'm saying to you is that it's going to be very important if this new transportation money comes down the pipe. It's going to be very important to have that vote to make sure that the peninsula receives the funding that it is supposed to get, and that the money is spent on the projects that we've been told it would be spent on. I feel very strongly if you allow Southside to continue to dominate, which they are, projects on the peninsula side are going to be few and far between. So just as a precaution, if it were me, I would ask you to write the Speaker of the House and explain to him that you need a representative out of the House or out of the Senate representing the peninsula with regard to the TPO. Okay, we talked about the widening. Let's talk a little bit about the money for Langley Air Force Base. And one thing I want to say publicly, I've already done it with an email to Councilman Ayer. He sent us a very touching email regarding the staff that put in a lot of time Gordon can't be everywhere at one time, and as you well know, your staff is what makes you. And it's no different in Richmond. That's the staff that I have are essential and have made all of these things, all the things happen. So Henry, thank you for that email. I appreciate it, and they did as well. The $3 million for Langley Air Force Base, which was approved and is in a different plan. It's in a FACT fund, so it won't be affected by the budget whether the budget falls or whether it doesn't. The FACT fund was created for this. It was we started back in the summer of last year. There were many people, to include the letter from this council, from the Board of Supervisors, the Hampton City Council, Chamber of Commerce, the realtors were on board, Retired Officers Association was on board as well, not to mention citizens from Poquoson, Hampton, and York County continuously writing letters. We had a lot of support. I think we defended it well at the appropriations level. I think we defended it well at the finance level, and we were able to get all 10 members of the FACT fund, 5 Republicans and 5 Democrats, to sign off on it, and I feel real good about that. It's of course next year it's going to be NASA. Next year it'll be NASA that will, whether I go back to Richmond or somebody else goes back to Richmond, they'll be facing that issue as well from the FACT fund, because NASA's having some difficulty, and but you have to start working on that now. You can't wait till next year and to start that process. One of the items in the budget, and really the only transportation side of the budget, and really the only phone calls that I've had to do with the hybrid fee, tax, call it what you want to, fine, is a very, in my view anyway, a very unfair way to treat those people that have purchased hybrids. I've written the governor. We'll defend it on the floor of the House when we go back in April. But it's, I really believe that these folks bought those cars for the right reason. You may have some that bought them for other reasons, but I really believe that the people that own hybrids were really trying to help. I don't think they were trying to hurt anybody, and I think this particular tax is unfounded, it's unfair, and I really don't think that I'm the only one that feels that way. So we'll work on that on the 3rd when we go back, and we'll see how that comes out. Overall, I think the session treated the 91st District very well. There are many, believe me, in Northern Virginia, did not take $1 home with them, did not take any transportation funding. They took no money for improvements to their schools, additional improvement to their schools, and so I think the 91st did very well. And that's not patting me on the back, because it takes, believe me, a lot of people to accomplish and get things done in Richmond. If you think you can do it by yourself, you'll be a failure. It just won't happen. You have to have a good staff. You have to have people behind you that will talk to you and give you good advice and even slap you around from time to time, because that's what you need. But it's been a good session. Now, what will happen April the 3rd through, I don't know when. I just can't tell you anything about that, because I just don't know. As always, I'm happy to take with me any suggestions, any comments that you folks have. They're important to me. The public has been, constituents have been very forthcoming in a lot of ways, and given me good constructive criticism, I guess you could call it. But the ideas make sense. Their ideas make sense, and if you really put them into action, they 9 times out of 10 they will work. But I was happy with the session. Again, if the school money comes through, I could probably tell you more about that. Well, actually, what I'll do is I'll just send something out to let you know how it went. You don't need to have me here and tying up your time every time you turn around, so I'll just send something out to let you know how the session concludes. Exactly what the budget turned out to be, exactly what the transportation turned out to be, and also try to make sure that we have something set up with the Secretary of Transportation so that you folks can make your decisions on what you want to do about Victory Boulevard, and we can, whether it's me next year or whoever it is, can start working on that, because you're going to have to monitor it. If you just say, well, Secretary of Transportation told me we're going to do improvements to Victory Boulevard, and you just, sit back and think that's going to happen, it's not. So it's important that somebody, whoever that person is, stays on top of it, makes sure that Victory Boulevard is protected, that 64 is protected. And we also need to make sure that we get somebody on that TPO before that money is appropriated, because if it's not, I think that it's very easy to slip funds from one place to the other. And if somebody's not watching, that's exactly what will happen, and that's just the truth. So we've given our best shot. We've tried to do the job I think that the city would want us to do, that Hampton would want us to do, and York County would want us to do. I think we've given the time, we've given the effort, and again, staff has been, those folks have just been great. I mean, the letters and the information they put in the mail on a daily basis is unbelievable. But they deserve a ton of credit, certainly more than I. So unless you have any questions, Mr. Vice Mayor, I will step away from the podium. I'm happy to try to answer any questions that you might have, but your budget questions may be better asked after the 3rd, but I can try to answer.
Well, we certainly do appreciate you taking the time to come and update us. We're just tickled to death that you're there in Richmond representing.
Well, thank you.
Any questions?
Just one, Gordon, the governor was scheduled to sign the transportation bill and several others today. Did he in fact sign it?
I don't think so.
Okay. Wasn't on the news, that's why.
Yeah, I don't
wondered
think
whether
so.
you heard anything. Thank you.
It is, even if he does, or even if he did late this evening, I still believe that there will be some issues when we get back on the 3rd. I had a lot of people ask me, why'd you support a budget with a tax increase? And the one thing I did not do is sign any type of tax pledges or those kinds of things. I honestly believe that your constituents would be better off to handcuff you than they would to have you sign tax pledges. I honestly believe if we had not gotten and not sure that we do have a transportation package this year, I don't know that you would ever get one. And there are some pretty sharp people in Richmond, a lot sharper than I am, and they have worked through their own budgets. They have worked through their own ideas of what we can do with transportation behind what the governor has done. You may very well see some of their plans come out of there on the 3rd, or ever how long we're going to be there. We'll be there until it's resolved, one way or the other.
Gordon, do you think there's, your gut feeling, do you think there's enough people upset about the Medicaid issue that they could trash the transportation bill?
But yeah, I would say that there are enough people, I believe, that walked away believing that Medicaid expansion was attached to the transportation funding. I can tell you, I was not in any meetings, or I never heard that. I never heard that. We've talked about reform, but we haven't talked about expansion.
Right.
I mean, I agree with the expansion, but I also believe we need some reform before we go there. But it could be simply because the conferees are made up of, both sides of the aisle. I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope it doesn't come to that, but wouldn't surprise me.
And I know it was tough for you and a lot of them to support that. I personally don't agree with the sales tax end of it. I would much rather have seen them go through the gas tax, let the people that use the roads pay for it. But I understand all the machinations that you had to go through, and everybody gave up something, and like you say, we got to have more money for transportation. And if we don't get it now, we may not ever get it.
Again, and I don't mean to be redundant, but the survivability of transportation on the peninsula is going to be determined by having another vote on the TPO. Some elected official that the speaker will put there and uses whatever influence they can to help this side.
Yep.
And I really believe if that's not done, I mean, I can't tell the speaker what to do. I didn't even think about telling him, but I have suggested it. I have written him and asked him, but it's, yeah, he needs to hear from you folks. He really does. Let me just make one comment about the gas tax, buddy, where I guess I fell off the wagon regarding that. When the gas tax was first proposed, it was going to be done away with in its entirety, supposedly. Mm-hmm. The problem as I saw it was that it was no more than a carrot out in front of somebody's face to believe that you would stop at a gas station July 1st and your gas was going to be 17.5 cents cheaper was absolutely ludicrous. I mean, that just wasn't going to happen. And how that ever got the momentum that it got, I don't know. I mean, the state or you or the government, they don't control those prices on gasoline. So, but anyway, that particular part, I would not have supported that. The only school issue that we had, there were several school issues that we didn't support on behalf of the 91st, and what we do is try to make sure that the school system upstairs, they know as much about the budget as I do and about the bills that are coming down, and so, you know, Ashley and Tina and Margaret will actually fix those on my iPad and tell me, you know, when that item comes up, we vote the way that the school system, the way this council has indicated to vote. What is sad about the budget system, and I wish we had one like the city has, but you don't get your chance just to vote on one thing. You've got an enormous amount of items packed into one report, and if you could take out what you didn't want, that would be fine. I mean, but you just can't do that. Here's the package. You either vote for it or you don't. For me to have not voted for it, I mean, that's pretty much a hypocrite to ask for $3 million for Langley Air Force Base and get some widening, maybe get some improvements out here to Victory Boulevard. I just didn't think that was the right thing to do.
Anybody else?
Yes,
More grilling?
Got one more for you.
Sure.
Through the, and this came up, somebody asked me about it today. I hadn't heard anything about it. As you know, that budget, that transportation bill is a moving target, things in and out. Someone asked me today that they said that somewhere they saw that there might be in Hampton Roads a 0.8% in personal property tax. Is that in or out? Is that?
I don't think to me, Henry, I haven't heard personal property tax mentioned anywhere. There is a little side, and I don't comment about it too much because I just don't know if it's going to happen. But you know, the dollars, and I'm sure you folks over there, Randy, have talked about this. The dollars that are going to be spent need to be spent over here, on this side of the river, and yeah, I know I'm being redundant, but I can't tell you how important I think that is. But I don't think if that's been talked about, I wasn't present about any kind of real estate tax. Again, even if the governor did sign the budget, there could be some issues, and probably will be.
And just to echo what everybody else said, that Langley thing is giant to this region, and we hope you're there to fight for NASA when that comes up too.
Yeah, we didn't want to go to war with the South Side because some of those fellows supported us, but the fact is they get $6.5 million every year for Oceana, and certainly didn't want to alienate those folks. Kind of want those folks on board. and they did get on board, and they were happy to do that. And of course, in the event that, they weren't happy about it, then then we have to make an issue of it. But if you don't have to make an issue, there's no need. So they were very supportive. I think they'll be supportive next year. The FACT Fund, Governor put an additional $20 million in it. He followed through on his promise. We asked him for that. He put it in. And the first authorization came through was $1 million. We sent it back, so it's not enough. Then they sent 2. That's not enough. We need 3. And that's what the conference committee showed. So that's solid. That's going to happen. That's done. That's over. It's not part of the budget.
Thank you.
Just thank you very much. You
Oh.
have a job that I wouldn't want for anything in the world, and I know it's tough, and you have to make hard decisions, and I appreciate that you have the wherewithal to do that.
Thank you, Tracy. I appreciate it. And when you have comments like that, you want to work harder, and you want to, my heart is still here, believe me.
And Gordon, before you leave, I want to ditto what Tracy just said and add to it. The city of Poquoson was proud to have you as a mayor. We're proud to have you representing us.
You're very
in the House of
kind. I
Representatives.
appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. If there's anything that I can do, Mr. Vice Mayor, you know where I am.
And you're certainly welcome here
I
anytime, and we
appreciate-
really appreciate you taking your time.
Glad to do it.
Come
Glad
and
to
talk
do
with
it.
us.
And I enjoyed reading a memoir this week about God showing up one day.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
Well done.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I went to a well-known bookstore down in Hampton, and they told me that it was back-ordered, a very, very popular book, and they wouldn't have it for probably a month. So I said, hey, that's good for Gordon.
Well, come by the house and,
Oh, okay.
25,000.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Gordon. Okay, our next presentation is Ms. Tammy Burgett, and she's going to talk to us about a cancer prevention study.
Thank you for having me tonight. Let me just apologize right off the bat. I've got one of that, scratchy coffee thing that's going around, and I just can't seem to get rid of it. So hopefully my talk won't be preempted by a coughing attack that I can't overcome. I'm here tonight to talk about the Cancer Prevention Study 3, or CPS 3, that is being conducted by the American Cancer Society. The American Cancer Society is the second largest contributor to cancer research in the United States, with the first being the government contributing more. So, and our purpose in cancer research is to save more lives. We're in the job of creating a world with more birthdays. Right now, we are saving 350 lives a day. We feel with the research and prevention studies that have been done in previous. Our goal is 1,000 lives a day. And really, most everybody that is working at the American Cancer Society or is participating in Relay for Life or some of the American Cancer Society fundraisers would really like to see cancer eliminated. Our goal really is a world with no more cancer. CPS 3 is the third major study. Do I have to change it? Okay. If I push this button, does it change?
Just smile at Evie and she'll advance it for you.
Peachy Keen. All right, thank you so much. This page kind of details the number of different studies that the American Cancer Society has undertaken. You can see the first one started back in the 50s. That was a very small study, and it kind of fed right into CPS 1. And that study identified the direct link between smoking and lung cancer. So that was a real key thing, and we've then now pushed, with the no smoking in public and some of those other bills that have been passed, because it was shown that, smoking directly caused lung cancer. CPS 2 study was a number of different things they were looking at, one of the biggest being lifestyle and obesity and how it affects cancer. There was not any earth-shattering discoveries that came out of that, like CPS-1 with the direct link. CPS-3, which was started in 2006, is continuing now, and here in Poquoson, it's going to be ramping up very quickly, is looking at a number of different things. It is looking at the, next one. It's looking at environment, lifestyle, medications, and technology, and what impact that has on cancer or your propensity to develop cancer. The amount of information they collect when you register for this study is amazing. Now, I registered back in September, and it was a lot. I really had to put on my thinking cap to remember what I was doing back in my, my teens and my 20s. But it's really a thorough identification of what your lifestyle has been like up to this point, and then over the course of the study, they'll track it more extensively. Any study provides us all kinds of information that we can use, and sometimes we may not know what piece of information we get until a couple years down the road, and then it's like, aha, that's where that came from. So we are very excited about this study, and one of the things I'm very excited about is the fact that it's coming here directly to Poquoson, which makes me very happy. You can turn to the next slide. What makes CPS-3 different from the other studies is they're focusing a little bit more on the younger population. To be involved in the study, you need to be between the ages of 30 and 65. You need to never have had cancer, although basal and squamous cell cancers are okay. You can still participate in the study. Any other cancers, just rule you out from the study, but hope you'll ask your friends to join if that's the case. And they are determining quite a bit of things right at the baseline of this study. They're going to draw blood. They're going to measure your waist. They're going to, as I mentioned, get a very detailed medical and lifestyle history. This study is also focusing a little bit more on different ethnicity and races. Some of the other ones were not. So, we're really focusing on trying to get some of those other pockets of our population involved in this study. Let me tell you a little bit about how Poquoson is so involved. We have a goal of enrolling 300,000 people in this study. They've broken it down by area here in Virginia and across the rest of the United States. But they have given us a goal in Poquoson of having 100 participants enroll in the study. Now, when my manager shared that with the mayor, he said, well, I don't think we're going to have a problem with that. I think, we probably are going to far surpass that. And that's what I'm hoping. I'm really hoping that we can get the people out and get them to, enroll. Now, by enrolling, you can see the website there that you go to enroll. The deadline for enrolling is May 31st. You need to go on there, and you can go now, and pick a time for your appointment on June 15th. Answer that long, detailed survey, which is the first one. Do it when you have a little bit of time, to think about it, and when your memory's fresh, of what you were doing back when you were teens. And once you do that enrollment, you will get a printout. It'll barcode you, and when you go on June 15th, you just take that barcode, and you then become that number for the rest of the study. They will send you in the mail surveys every couple years that we'd like you to fill out. And this is a long-term commitment, 20 to 30-year commitment. Knowing that some people will drop off the study or whatever, but we're really looking forward to it, giving us some other good news about cancer and what causes it and what we can do to prevent it. Poquoson was chosen because of the community involvement that is in this small little town of Poquoson, which I love. We have a number of champions already in Poquoson that are supporting this, the mayor being one of them, and then a couple other people that I work with through Relay for Life. And we're just, I think you will surpass your goal of 100 people. I really have no doubt about that. And I think it will be great that we do that. The kickoffs for this area, the Virginia Beach and Hampton Roads area, we're still trying to nail those down. That is where we will roll it out to the public. You'll start seeing some information, in advertisements and things. We are pushing for the first kickoff to be here in Poquoson. So y'all are really stellar and up there on our list. And I really do believe that y'all will make a difference and help us, greatly in this study. Do you have any questions?
Any questions for Ms.?
You said your goal is 100 people. Are you taking more than that from Poquoson?
Oh, gosh, yes. Yes. If we don't get 100, I'm in trouble. If we get 300, oh, I'm looking like a rock star.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll take as many. But because of the, I told you the deadline to enroll is May 31st. Right now they're planning on 100. So if we have 300 people coming that day, they need to have the supplies, the people that could draw the blood, so that there's not long lines and we don't keep people waiting. Because when you come on the June 15th, you only be there 20 to 30 minutes at the max. And I can tell you when I did mine back in September, I think I was only there 10 minutes. You fill out a very short survey, they draw some blood, measure your waist, which is really not a pleasant thing, and then you're on your way. So.
And one more question.
Yeah.
It says that you've never been diagnosed with cancer. Does that include pre-cancers, adenomas, and all that?
Nope, you're still fine for the study.
Okay.
Okay? It's just, have been diagnosed with a cancer.
Okay.
All right? Any other questions?
Well, we're just very happy that Poquoson has been chosen to participate, and I think you'll probably have a good 100 or better. So, Woman Tracy here will get on that and gather up a good
so.
number.
I hope so. I think you all do a great job.
And we really appreciate you coming out and speaking to us.
It is my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and if you have any other questions about it, we have the numbers for the office on the back page there. Give us a call. If you need information for anything, an organization that you're involved with, or you would like someone to come out and speak to you about it, give us a call. I'm happy to head this way. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, we're down to item C, audience for visitors. It's item D. If there's anyone that wants to address council about anything. We'll close that out. And item E is approval of the minutes. And for our regular session, March the 11th. Have a motion?
Mayor, I move that we approve the minutes for the regular meeting of March 11, 2013.
Second.
Okay, and that's as amended?
Well, I think the amended one is work session.
Work session.
Oh, okay, that's correct. Okay, we have a motion and a second for the March 11 regular meeting minutes. Ms. Wiggins?
Councilman Ayer.
Aye.
Councilwoman Crawford.
Aye.
Councilman Green.
Aye.
Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Councilman Vernal.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Mr. Vice Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 6-0.
Okay, and for the work session, 11 March.
Mr. Mayor, I move the adoption of the minutes as amended for the work session of 11 March.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Wiggins?
Councilman Green.
Aye.
Councilman Vernal.
Aye.
Councilman Ayer.
Aye.
Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Councilwoman Crawford.
Aye.
And Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Mr. Vice Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 6-0.
Okay, item F is public hearings, and 1, A, B, C, and D were postponed until our next meeting. So gets us down to item 2, ordinance for amending Article 7.1, Section 7.1-4 of the subdivision ordinance by removing the requirements of no less than 2 acres per lot for subdivision property. And this will be the first reading. Mr. Wheeler, did you
Vice
want-
Mayor, I'll take a shot at it, unless Karen wants to speak to it. Go ahead.
Did you want to?
Don't y'all fight over it.
Okay.
All right.
Please.
Well, this is a real simple one. It's a housekeeping measure that we've been meaning to do for a long time. We just finally have gotten to it. For an undetermined amount of time, we've had this one phrase at the end of section 7.1-4 requiring no less than 2 acres per lot for a 2 or 3 lot subdivision. This is not something that we've consistently held to. Everything else in the subdivision ordinance takes you back to the zoning ordinance. Whatever your zoning district is would be the minimum lot size. And so we're making this consistent with the rest of the subdivision ordinance, and that's about it, unless anybody's got any questions.
Any questions or comments from anyone? Okay, so consideration by oil at public hearing. Does anyone, any comments?
Open the hearing.
Oh, I thought I just did, I'm sorry. We'll open the public hearing. And now we'll close it. Okay, consideration by council?
Mr. Vice Mayor, excuse me, I move that we adopt an ordinance amending the subdivision ordinance by revising Article 7.1, Development Plan for Property Within Definitional Exception of Subdivisions, Section 7.1-4, Approval of Plan, Minimum Lot Size pertaining to the minimum lot size requirements.
Okay, and we have a motion and a second. So, Ms. Wiggins?
Councilwoman Crawford.
Aye.
Councilman Ayer.
Aye.
Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Councilman Bernal.
Aye.
Councilman Green.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Mr. Vice Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 6-0.
Ma'am. And item G is new business, and the first one is resolution making appointments to the Economic Development Authority. And Councilman Green, you have...
Mr. Vice Mayor, I move that we adopt a resolution making appointments to the Economic Development Authority with the following names included: Timothy Trant, whose term will expire March 31st, 2017, and Angela Ward Costello, term will expire March 31st, 2017.
Okay, we have a motion
Second?
and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Wiggins?
Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Councilman Bernal.
Aye.
Councilman Green.
Aye.
Councilman Ayer. Councilwoman Crawford.
Aye.
And Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Mr. Vice Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 6-0.
Thank you. And number 2, under new business, was resolution making appointments to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. Councilman Green?
Mr. Vice Mayor, I move that we adopt a resolution establishing terms of office and making appointments to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board with the following names inserted. For the Central Precinct, Robert P. Sierra, I hope I pronounced that name right, Jr. Term will expire March 31st, 2014. Charles W. Gatz, Jr., whose term will expire March 31st, 2016. From the Western Precinct, Deborah Banton, whose term will expire March 31st, 2014. Carrie A. Rogers, whose term will expire March 31st, 2016. From the Eastern Precinct, John J. Fodden, whose term will expire March 31st, 2014. Mark D. Moncure, term will expire March 31st, 2016. 3 at-large members, Thomas J. Powers, whose term will expire March 31st, 2014, and Judith G. Massey and Keith A. Fay, whose terms will expire March 31st, 2016.
Have a second?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just for the record, that's Bob Chira.
Cheer. Thank you. I knew I would pronounce it wrong.
Okay, hearing none, Ms. Wiggins?
Councilman Ayer.
Aye.
Councilwoman Crawford.
Aye.
Councilman Green.
Aye.
Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Councilman Bernal.
Aye.
And Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Mr. Vice Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 6-0.
Thank you. And that gets us to agenda item H, which is comments of the city manager.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr. Vice
Wheeler.
Mayor. I only have one thing. As members of council know, and hopefully citizens know, emergency planning really never takes a day off or a month off in Poquoson, and this past month, we've seen freak high tides for this time of year. We saw a little bit of a snowstorm, which could have been worse, and I just wanted to commend to you. Last week, Bob Speechley represented us at the VDEM annual conference. We don't do a lot of training in this city because we don't have much of a budget, but that's the one thing we always prioritize. And then Bob did a nice job representing us last week. That's all.
Okay, council directives, Dr. Bernal, we'll start with you, please.
Two very quick things. One, just to commend everybody that was involved with the kickoff of the Little League baseball season. It was great to see the parental support, not only just being there, but for helping with coaching and so forth. And also all of the sponsors who, both from Poquoson and the area, who came up with the funds to supply T-shirts and the other things needed for the team. So it's great to see that kind of support, and it was wonderful. And the other thing, wish everybody a very happy Easter season and be very safe on your travels around as the young folks get off next week.
Thank you. Councilman Green?
Just two things, Mr. Vice Mayor. One, to remind everybody that tomorrow is the Food Bank Day in Poquoson. It'll be at the old City Hall from 10 to 2. I got an advanced list of the food that they're going to supply, and it's a very good list, very appropriate for the Easter season. They're going to have 2 meats, chicken and ham, so along with a whole lot of vegetables and produce. So encourage everybody to come out and participate. Tabernacle United Methodist Church will host it, and like I say, it's from 10 to 2 tomorrow. And I'd like to encourage the council to follow through on what Delegate Helsel asked us to do, in that we should write a letter to the House leader and ask him to put someone from the peninsula on the TPO. Randy and I saw firsthand what the South Side will do to us at the last meeting. The only and the most important project I felt like on the whole agenda was the I-64 widening, and the South Side managed to postpone it for a very flimsy reason. And if they have their way, they will postpone it until they get the money on the South Side. So I encourage us to please write that letter and have all of us sign it, send it to House Speaker.
Group letter of it.
Yeah. Yep. That's it.
Councilman Mayor?
Just like to take a second or two to thank the special presentations of Delegate Helsel and Tammy Brigette, and I'm pretty positive that we'll blow by that 100 number. And I hope the citizens can see how this is a long-term project, but it's a long-term project that'll benefit a lot of folks if we have a big participation.
Okay. Oh, I have nothing, thank you.
I would like to second the comments made by everyone so far. The Little League, the comments Buddy made relative to writing that letter, I think that's going to be very important, and to thank Gordon and Tammy for their presentations, and to encourage everyone to participate and support the Cancer Society in this study. I think it's going to be a very important thing. It's to the benefit of everyone.
I have a friend that says the way you determine the health of a community is you ride by a youth activity and count the parents. And I think Saturday he would have had to have help to have counted that high number. So by his criteria, at least, this is a very healthy community. And just thank everyone for all the stuff they do. The city as a whole just operates so well, and when you drive into the city, you can tell that you're here just because of the condition of things. And that just makes it nice to be here. So just thank you to everybody. And that's all I have. So any other comments from anyone? Last opportunity? Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Discussion? Ms. Wiggins, please.
Councilman Green.
Aye.
Councilman Bernal.
Aye.
Councilman Ayer.
Aye.
Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Councilwoman Crawford.
Aye.
And Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Mr. Vice Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 6-0.
Thank you. So we are adjourned.
An hour, look at that.